Wishes Fulfilled, Mastering the Art of Manifesting by Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. Chapter 3, Your Highest Self. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God. Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 6. In the previous chapter, you explored the idea that there's a spark of God within you, which you can choose to expand into a consciously larger component of your daily life. This spark is your spiritual essence, your higher self. As your awareness increases that you are a God-realized being, you will welcome it as the central focus of your life. The concept of your higher self will gradually evolve into your highest self, which is truly omniscient, almighty, and capable of producing miracles. Here you will see a new reality, a majestic idea of yourself that you previously seemed unconceivable. Your highest self is described in the pronouncement in the display quote at the beginning of this chapter, written by St. Paul in his letters to the Philippians in the New Testament. You move from being a spark or fragment of God to being able to assert that I am God, and not feel as if you're committing blasphemy or a cardinal sin by such a declaration. Here, the idea that you are equal with God was promoted by Christ Jesus, and you are encouraged by him to let this mind be in you. This isn't the God created by humans. The ego-driven deity who plays favorites, requires ostentatious places of worship, has temper tantrums, demands reparations, and is filled with rage, punishing those who do not do his bidding, not even close. I am speaking here of the creative source of all being, a God who is responsible for creating the miraculous movement from non-being to being, a God who is formless, who does nothing yet leaves nothing undone, a God who is everywhere. This is a divine invisible presence that's within you. This idea is at the basis of all great spiritual teaching throughout all time. Much of organized religious teaching proclaims that God is an all-powerful being outside of you. That idea has been thrown at you since you were old enough to process this absurd notion. God, you were told, watches you and punishes you if you misbehave, but listens to your prayers and helps you resolve your conflicts if you do the right thing and please him. Perhaps it is a radical idea for you to declare, I am God and God is love, or believe that he who abides in love abides in God and God in him. 1 John chapter 4, verse 16, is who you are. When you are this God, this essence of pure love, it is all you have to give away. And when you realign yourself in this vein, once again quoting Jesus the Christ, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Now, all things are possible leaves out nothing, including your ability to fulfill any and all wishes that are aligned with God. You may find it difficult at first to be able to assert to yourself that I am God. But when you put it into the context of God as love, and pure love allows you to be almighty, all-knowing, and God-realized, you will, I assure you, begin to regain the omnipotence that is your essence from the moment of your transition from non-being, spirit, to being human. I emphasize these teachings of Jesus to show that the declaration of I am God is not only not in opposition to the teachings of Christianity or other spiritual practices, but is fully aligned with these earlier teachings. The reason it may seem blasphemous to say that I am God is because we've adopted the God of the ego, created by humans from ego-based ideas of a God that imitates our most unholy human attributes. I've been studying two great spiritual teachers in depth for several years as I've prepared to write this book. One of them is Ewell S. Anderson, and the book of his that I read, studied, meditated upon, and am now living and teaching is titled 3 Magic Words. The book is 323 pages long, and it was not until the last chapter, after many specific meditations and exercises, after many enlightening words on consciousness, intuition, faith, love, success, immortality, and more, and after investing time and energy in what is being taught by the author, that I discovered what the 3 magic words actually are. Here is the beginning of the final chapter titled The Key. This is the ineffable secret, the ultimate illumination, the key to peace and power. You are God. If you will accept this towering truth, dare to stand atop this magnificent pinnacle, universal consciousness will be revealed to you from within. God is there. It is He who appears from behind your eyes, who is your own consciousness, who is your very self. You are not just a part of God, you are altogether God, and God is altogether you. This is your highest self. It's indeed a towering assumption, but one, if used in context and alignment with the creative source of all, that is the key to mastering the ability to live a life of your wishes being fulfilled. After all, with God as you and you as God, all things are possible. This is not an assertion limited to Western teachings or the Christian faith. In the Vendetta, the ancient pre-Christian teachings, we are reminded that we are not a part of, but identical with, that absolute spirit of the world. Before we go any further, I want to share with you some words from my other great spiritual teacher, Neville, regarding this notion of you and me actually being God. Neville's book, The Power of Awareness, contains 27 brief chapters. It's a book you could easily read in a couple of hours. Yet, much like the Tao Te Ching, though it can be read in a brief moment of time, it could also be studied endlessly and you'd repeatedly discover deeper meaning. As I mentioned earlier, I devoted a year to studying, meditating on, practicing, and ultimately writing essays on how to apply the wisdom of that tiny little book of 81 verses. The result was published as a compendium titled Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. Neville's brief book had the same kind of magnetic allure for me as did the Tao. It was in my 7th complete reading of Neville's book, and after listening to some of his recorded lectures, that I decided to write this book in an effort to make his stupendous insights more readily available and applicable to those of us now occupying this planet as temporary residents. I've taken extensive notes on Neville's teaching and literally put them to work in my own life. I have lectured throughout the world on the idea of having our wishes fulfilled via the avenue of assuming the power of God that is not only our birthright, but our very essence. Neville's words remind me to seek my highest self, and whenever I make the decision to live from this awareness, I am immediately at peace and watch as divine consciousness seems to align with me in creating the fulfillment of all that I ask for. As I finished the first 26 chapters in my 7th reading of Neville, I heard once again the same holy refrain that U.S. Anderson offered in his conclusion of 3 magic words. Neville begins his final chapter titled Reverence with these words. In all creation, in all eternity, in all of the realms of your infinite being, the most wonderful fact is that which is stressed in the first chapter of this book. You are God. You are the I am that I am. You are consciousness. You are the creator. This is the mystery. This is the great secret known by the seers, prophets, and mystics throughout the ages. This is the truth that you can never know intellectually. The important thing is that it is within you. It is you. It is your world. This is a monumental awareness, a knowing that you can only feel. It manifests as a feeling of love that is ineffable and incapable of being known intellectually. Neville's conclusion explains this perfectly. The knowledge that your Creator is the very self of yourself and never would have made you had He not loved you must fill your heart with devotion, yes, with adoration. It is when your feeling of reverence is most intense that you are closest to God, and when you are closest to God, your life is richest. I conclude that the closest you can be to God is through recognizing what this entire chapter is about. You can't be any closer to God than to be God. When you realize this preeminent assertion, you regain the power of your source because you no longer live as you were estranged from your source. You see that God manifests in a countless array of forms, and yes, you are one of those sublime forms. In Neville's conclusion that you are God, he uses the phrase, you are the I am that I am. These 5 words are an absolutely crucial component of the essence of this book. They will be extremely helpful in getting you over the hurdle of truly knowing that you are God. Why? Because you've most likely been conditioned to believe that such an assertion is blasphemous and likely to incur God's wrath by daring to question His supremacy. A journey into the I am that I am. As has always happened with my writing, there seem to be unseen forces that direct me as I move forward on my own spiritual path, fulfilling a dharma that Carl Jung also expressed about his life's work. Like him, I've often felt that sense of destiny, as though my life was assigned to me by fate and had to be fulfilled. Jung also said that this gave him an inner security, which I identify with as well. And though he couldn't prove it, he said that it proved itself to me. I did not have the certainty it had me. Throughout my entire professional career, when I felt tugged toward a newer and higher spiritual place, I too have felt guided. It's as if angels send me information related to what I will be writing and experiencing long before the actual writing speaking. Strangers send me a variety of media to listen to or to read that awaken something within me. Repeated references in conversation or reviews about movies will ignite an inner spark of inquisitiveness, which leads to what I didn't know I needed for my next step on the ladder to enlightened living. This was true as I was preparing myself, or possibly being prepared, for examining this idea of spiritual wish fulfillment. The work of Neville kept knocking at my door in my myriad of ways, as did Initiatic Science and U.S. Anderson's Three Magic Words. But the teachings that I need to study, experience, and ultimately know had to penetrate my consciousness. How was my council of angelic immortals going to get this information to me, this ancient teaching that I had been almost totally removed from for my entire life? As I've said many times, when the student is ready, the teachers will appear. I feel that I was being made ready, and the teachers and the teachings were showing up in just the right way to prod me toward the fulfillment of my own dharma, and perhaps yours too. Since you are now reading these words and are therefore connected to all that I am being taught as well. Obviously, we are all in this thing together. Your being in possession of this book and studying the messages herein may be just as mysterious to you as how the teachings came to me. I had been away from my writing space on Maui for several months, speaking and spending time with my family. When I returned, I received a call from my yoga teacher telling me that someone had dropped off a package at the studio for me. When I picked it up, it was like a gift from King Midas, wrapped in gold paper with a beautiful ribbon tied in a bow. I brought it home and set the gift next to my eating space and looked at it every day for 3 weeks, each time thinking it was just one more package to open amongst the amount of mail that had accumulated over the previous months in my absence. But there was something unique about this package, so I just left it there through all of my meals, telling myself I'll open it later, yet feeling strangely drawn to it at the same time. One evening I finally decided to open it, and I must say I had a rush of excitement that I couldn't understand at the time. As I undid a bow, I discovered a note attached to the box, written to me by a Miss Carol Ann Jacobs, whom I did not know, nor had even met. She had heard through the grapevine that I practiced yoga at the Lohano studio and simply left it there to be given to me when I returned. The note said, "This gift of gold is a pearl of the highest wisdom on the planet, handed down through the ethers from the octave of light. If taken up, used, and made as a living flame within oneself, it will lead them into their ascension at the close of this embodiment. With sincere love and gratitude for all the raising of the vibration you have done for the earth and for all the beings of the elements, lovingly, Carol Ann Jacobs." As I unwrapped the gold paper, I saw that the box contained a small book, which I immediately decided, I thought, that I couldn't possibly read, since I had at least 25 books from all over the world with requests for me to read, endorse, or write a foreword. Because of the volume of such material that perpetually shows up at my doorstep, I always have a large number of books that I donate to charities. I left the book on the table and said to myself, I will put this with others destined to be donated to a worthy cause. I simply can't get to it. But this little package seemed to have an energy all of its own. I'd glance at it, peruse it a bit, and then set it down, vowing to put it on the pile of materials that I would never get to. Yet it remained next to me for several weeks. One day, while I was holding it, I felt a shaft of energy course through me. I had goosebumps all over my body, and thus began a new chapter in my life. I decided right there and then that I would read the entire 362 pages. The contents of this book led me to further inquiry, which culminated in probably not mine, decision to put these gold nuggets of spiritual truth into my speeches and writing, and most important, my life. The book is volume 3 in the Saint Germain series titled the I Am Discourses. In my daily reading of the material, I began to see clearly the message of you and I and everyone else being God. The 33 discourses in this volume were channeled directly from the ascended Masters, Saint Germain, and others, including Jesus Christ, between October 3, 1932 and January 1, 1935, when they were published as the I Am Discourses. Guy Ballard was the man present for these dictations, and he published them under his pseudonym, Godfrey King. He writes, "The 33 discourses contained in this book were dictated over a visible light and sound ray in our home during 1932 by the Ascended Master Saint Germain and those other Ascended Masters directly concerned with this activity. The sound of his voice was physically audible to everyone in the room. Never before, except in the retreats of the Great White Brotherhood, has such intensified transcendent instruction concerning the I Am been given to individuals. I am simply presenting this to you as what is written in the foreword of the book. It is of no concern to me to delve into the veracity or authenticity of channeled material. To me, everything is channeled from God. I don't know where these words I'm writing come from. I certainly don't own them, and I feel that they come fast and furious when I stay in spirit or inspired. What I am concerned with is the magnificence of these messages and my awareness that our world could be a world of love, peace, and joy, and we have the power to access unlimited fulfillment of wishes that are aligned with our source of being. And that is why I present the essence of the I Am teachings and encourage you to dig deeply into their content. The essence is quite simply that I Am is the full activity of God, and that each and every one of us can realign ourselves so that our I Ams reflect the God that we are, rather than the ego that most of us have become. Here is one more very important observation from the first discourse offered by Saint Germain. The first expression of every individual everywhere in the universe, either in spoken word, silent thought, or feeling, is I Am, recognizing its own conquering divinity. The student endeavoring to understand and apply these mighty yet simple laws must stand guard more strictly over his thought and expression, in word or otherwise, for every time I say I am not, I cannot, I have not, you are, whether knowingly or unknowingly, throttling that great presence within you. This speaks so directly to me in the message I wish to convey. Every time you think of the expression I am, you initiate God in action. Why not continually remind yourself that I live, move, and have my being as God, the I am that I am? I'm going to detour here for a few paragraphs to bring you back to a transmission that is recorded in a book that you're probably familiar with, which is the Holy Bible. Both the Torah, the first book of the Old Testament, and the New Testament. If you've been raised Christian or Jewish, you will see that these tidings of spiritual truth I'm delivering here are dramatically harmonized with your core teachings. These 5 words, I am that I am, contain a message that has been encoded in your soul. According to ancient spiritual teachings dating back 13,000 years before the birth of Christ, the words I am align you with the divine, and at the same time remind you that you are the divine, possessing the same power to create as God. God speaks as I am. The infant Moses, you may recall, was put in a basket and left in the reeds by the Nile River because he was the son of an Israelite slave. The Pharaoh had ordered every male child born to Israelite slaves to be drowned in the river. However, as luck or divine intervention would have it, the Pharaoh's daughter discovered the floating infant and rescued him to be raised as a prince among his despotic enemies. As a young man, Moses witnesses an Egyptian soldier abusing an Israelite slave and responds by killing the soldier and hiding the body. But his adoptive grandfather, the Pharaoh, discovers his misdeed and orders him put to death. Moses escapes to the land of Midian and finds refuge with Jethro, a local priest whose daughter Zipporah he marries. Moses lives primarily as a shepherd and husband for some 40 years. Now here's a man born to an Israelite slave who was supposed to be killed at birth by order of the Pharaoh, but was saved by the Pharaoh's daughter and raised as her son, and is now a shepherd. He's out tending his flock when he encounters a burning bush, which continues to burn without consuming the bush itself. Moses then, the ancient scriptures tell us, hears God speaking. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Exodus chapter 3, verses 2 through 6. The story continues in the book of Exodus, and God was said to have told Moses that he was to go to the Pharaoh and free the children of Israel, saying, Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people and the children of Israel out of Egypt. Exodus chapter 3, verse 10. Then Moses questions how he could do such an enormous task all by himself, and God replies, I will certainly be with you. Exodus chapter 3, verse 12. Moses follows up by inquiring, Indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your father has sent me to you, and they say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? Exodus chapter 3, verse 10. And God said to Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. Exodus chapter 3, verses 14 through 15. This is also a memorial to you and me in this generation. The name of God, which is you and me, is I am. This is the fundamental teaching of the I am discourses and becoming acquainted with your highest self. Still having trouble seeing yourself as God? Try this. Imagine God as the ocean. If you take a bucket of water out of the ocean, is the water in the bucket the ocean? Yes, indeed it is altogether the ocean. And the ocean, even though it is larger, is still altogether the whole of the ocean in the bucket. Now think of yourself as a bucket of God, altogether God, and God is altogether you. It is only when you stay separated from the ocean that the water dries up. This is your task in grasping your highest self, staying aligned and not separated from your source, and remembering what God says in Psalms chapter 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. In the Moses Code, author James Twyman makes a powerful case for getting to this truth. In fact, the subtitle is The Most Powerful Manifestation Tool in the History of the World. I also encourage you to read James's Manifesting book for a much fuller treatment of the power of the words that God reputedly spoke to Moses in response to his question regarding his name. The Torah is presumed to have been written some 13,000 years before the birth of Christ, the holy place where God first manifests and tells Moses to remove his shoes, where Moses discovers who he truly is by his very first words to God, Here I am. I say this to you with absolute certainty. The I am that has been with you in all of the physical forms you've occupied since your birth is God. The two words I am are God's name. How do you use these words? You strive to know, just like God taught when he said, Be still and know that I am God. That with the use of God's name, you release all doubt about being able to manifest your desires, and you live from the exalted pinnacle of your highest self. Just to reinforce this idea that you are indeed the I am, or God, consider moving forward to the time when Jesus, the man, was on earth. His words let you know that this idea of declaring yourself as I am God is not some new age interpretation, and in no way is offensive to Christianity. You are not guilty of blasphemy by allowing this belief to be alive within you. If you're experiencing pangs of guilt, reread the display quote at the beginning of this chapter, which was written by St. Paul. Yes, you are equal with God. It's okay. Jesus speaks as I am. In the book of John, when Jesus is asked if he has seen Abraham, he responds with these words: Most assuredly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. John chapter 8, verse 58. Here, Jesus indicates that God, the creative source of the universe, defined as love, is called I am. Throughout the New Testament, many of the most significant messages offered to all of us begin with the name of God, a name that you are to have come to use. All too frequently, though, you use it to define yourself as a part of or distant from your source. I am weak, I am sick, I am poor, I am sad, and so on. By using the words I am, Jesus tells us that he is one with God. He doesn't just say the name, he claims it as himself, and as you will soon see, asks you to do the same. Here is James Twyman in the Moses Code. When Jesus came along and basically said, I am God, they responded in the harshest manner, and yet this is the essence of the Moses Code. The realization that we're all one with God, and once realized, to act with the power and possession of God in the world. When Jesus did this, miracles followed him everywhere he went. And I say to you emphatically that by internalizing this message and knowing it, you too will have miracles occurring in your life. Here are some of those powerful messages from the teachings of Jesus, in which he invokes the manner of God as a prefix to his admonitions to all of us. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved. John chapter 10, verse 9. I am the good shepherd. John chapter 10, verse 11. I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. John chapter 6, verse 35. I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. John chapter 8, verse 12. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John chapter 14, verse 6. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. John chapter 15, verse 1. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Revelations 1, verse 8. And perhaps the most significant I am statement offered by Jesus. I am the resurrection of the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. John chapter 11, verse 25. Note that Jesus did not say, I am the crucifixion. He said, I am the resurrection, meaning God is the resurrection, the being of light that is external and resides in all of us. When my youngest daughter, Saj, was a second grader in a private religious school, she told her mother and me that she hated going into the chapel and seeing a dead body impaled on a cross. It bothered her so much that she asked the school officials to be excused from chapel because the image filled her with such sadness that she couldn't even concentrate on her schoolwork. We were informed that attendance at chapel was mandatory. The end result was that we transferred her to another school where such images of suffering did not exist. I often think that Sage's experience as a 7-year-old child is indicative of a larger but identical problem on the planet. Jesus said, I am the resurrection, the transcendent being of light, made of love. God is love. That is in all of us. Yet much of the world's Christian attention is focused on the crucifixion of Jesus, the suffering being who has nails in his hands and feet, a crown of thorns, blood dripping down his face, and a wound in his side. This is an image focusing on the suffering, tormented soul in all of us, which then promotes more suffering and terror. It dwells on the false idea that God is equated with his suffering. I prefer the artistic interpretations of Jesus as the resurrection, filled with love and light, transcending earthly suffering and encouraging all of us to love each other, rather than the offering that depict him as a tortured soul. How different our world might be if we focus on the resurrection rather than the crucifixion. Collectively, we might live out this mandate and see the eternal resurrected light that truly defines our I am nature. We might be taking a giant step toward the idea reflected in the words, on earth as it is in heaven, Matthew chapter 6, verse 10. In reading the scriptures while doing research for this book, I noted that the word me, when used by Jesus, is capitalized or italicized for emphasis. So who was this great teacher referring to when he used words like, without me you can do nothing, or no one comes to the Father except through me? If he meant Jesus, the man who walked among us, then it would make sense to idolize Jesus as the one and only anointed one who has all the powers of God as his only Son. Yet in his own words, according to the name of Scriptures, he reminds us, it is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh profits nothing. The words that I speak to you are spirit and they are life. John chapter 6, verse 63. This point needs your deepest attention. When Jesus says me or I am the way, he isn't talking about his bodily self, the man who walks and talks. He is speaking as God, whose name he has told us is I am. He reminded us that the flesh counts for nothing, so we can presume he is speaking about his own flesh as well. He further confirms this point by saying, the words I speak to you are spirit and they are life. The person who was Jesus knew that the creative source of the universe is the words, I am that I am. He was wise and holy enough to realize that the words I am were the Spirit of God speaking and not the human body comprised of flesh and bones. This is the essential message of this chapter in your highest self. You are God. Jesus later speaks to you in these words. Most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also, and greater works than these he will do. John chapter 14, verse 12. There is that me again, the same me that is you, when you stay aligned and know that you too can and will do great and greater works when you cast out all doubt about your own divinity and live as you are encouraged to live, not just as a piece of God, but as God himself. Yes, you need not consider it robbery to be equal with God. And this is the logical sequence that can and will allow you to change your concept of yourself and recognize your divine nature and the fundamental truth that when you become one with your creator as co-creator, you gain all of the powers that are inherent in saying I am God, meaning of course that God is love. As Neville so succinctly stated, it is I am's concept of itself that determines the form and scenery of its existence. Everything depends upon its attitude toward itself, that which it will not affirm as true of itself cannot awaken in its world. See if you can accept this logical sequence leading to a new concept of yourself as God altogether. God speaks to Moses and announces his name for all future generations to know. I am that I am. Jesus, some 1,300 years later, acknowledges God as I am. Jesus reminds us that he too is God with his many I am the way pronouncements. Jesus tells us that we are all equal with God. Jesus assures us that he speaks as spirit and that the flesh counts for nothing. Jesus tells us that we too can do all that he does because we are God also. You are God, that I am, that I am. Knowing it and stay in harmony with this divine I am presence. Perhaps now it doesn't sound so foreign to assert your divine nature. You might want to start by being careful not to use the words I am when describing yourself in any way that isn't congruous with your newly awakened God-realized self. I return to the poets to sum up that original meeting between Moses and God, disguised as a burning bush that resists being consumed. Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God, not only he who takes off his shoes, the rest sit around it and pluck blackberries. Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Yes, indeed. Earth's crammed with heaven, and you are earth, filled with overflow with God. So take off your shoes and respect the holy space that is you. 3 suggestions. Become conscious of precisely how you are using the words I am in your daily conversations. If whatever allows these 2 words is not fully aligned with your perception of how the creative source of the universe would be speaking, then make the correction on the spot. Say to yourself, I am the resurrection and the life and thought and feeling. According to the I am discourses of Saint Germain, it immediately turns all the energy of your being to the center in the brain, which is the source of your being. You cannot overestimate the power in this statement. There is no limit to what you can do with it. It was the statement that Jesus used most in his most difficult trials. Notice how those around you, particularly family and close friends, use and misuse the inherent power of I am in their lives. Observe that many people say, I am weak, poor, depressed, sick, sad, afraid, unlucky, and so on, and they continue to attract that into their life. If they are willing to listen and change, gently remind them that there is no way to attract what they prefer without acknowledging and applying the active presence of God in them. No arguments, just gentle reminders. By observing and teaching the I am awareness, you will become more aligned with your highest self. Remind yourself often that you have to send the old unworkable fabrications about your highest self out of your life forever. Be able to say, I am God, with pride and assurance that you are not being blasphemous or inappropriate. Believing in that ego-driven idea of God is a malevolent super being who plays favorites and is filled with rage if you displease him is akin to believing in the Easter Bunny and praying to that rabbit to solve your problems. Keep uppermost in your thoughts the words of Jesus, God is love, and that you are proud to be that all-powerful God yourself.